Um, okay, so this session was scheduled for half an hour, but I think we'll try and keep it quite tight. And we were going to be answering the question here of what is it that assessors are looking for. Right, okay, everyone. We seem to have got most people back in, thank goodness. I must say that was a challenge. I was told to to go away and come back later, which wasn't what I was expecting. Um, okay, so this session was scheduled for half an hour, but I think we'll try and keep it quite tight. And we were going to be answering the question here of what is it that assessors are looking for in an application. And we thought in order to start, we would quickly go around the panel and give them a chance to say very briefly. And can I suggest, given the time issues, we try and keep our comments to 1 minute each maximum. So what they are looking for in an application. Perhaps Esther, would you like to start?
Okay, great. So when I'm reading an application, what I want to learn more about you, why you want to join the program, what your interests are, and I want to hear that in your own words. So, and my main takeout message, I might say that later again, take home message is please read the instructions very carefully that are on the website and please follow them. It gives you a good structure to think about how to structure your statement. Please follow these instructions and then tell us why are you interested in a PhD? What are your interests? What are you passionate about in science? And why do you want to join this particular program?
Okay, great. Thank you, Esther. Perhaps Neil, would you like to go next?
Yeah,
Right.
sure. One thing we're really keen on here is
It's
equality
13:45.
of access. So one thing we're certainly not focusing on is just only what people have achieved, but much more the trajectory. So we're really looking at for you to evidence how you've taken an opportunity and done something with it, innovated, moved forward. So it's kind of what you've done with the opportunity you had, not just where you've got to. But also, and apart from that, your interest and curiosity and your passion about the natural world on my side, and the Earth system. And also because science needs collaboration, about what you've been doing, working with others, and have you been doing positive things with people and contributing in society? Those kind of things too are important.
Okay, thank you. And I agree entirely, Neil. Farina, would you like to go next?
Lovely, yeah. It gets thinner, obviously. So I am very interested in where are you coming from? You know, what have you done? How does this opportunity fit within your trajectory? And as Esther said, I can't even speak. I would like to hear it in your own words, so not something pre-read. For us at Oxford Brookes, obviously, to some extent, it is also, do you fit? We're very proud of how we can support our students with our existing research culture and groups. So it will also be of interest, you know, how would you fit within our research themes? Can we support what you would like to do, what you're interested in, to the best of our abilities? Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Trevor, I was wondering if you have anything to add. It's obviously getting harder as we go down the list.
I'd echo everything said there. I'd say where you have an option to list supervisors that you might be interested with working with, look broadly across the departments and the different partner institutes. And if you can see people, more than one group that you might be interested in working with, make sure you list different people that you'd be interested in working with. They got to give us a good idea of kind of the breadth of your interests as well.
Okay, thank you. Martin, anything to add from your side?
Yeah, it's getting more difficult, but I guess one thing we should say is that, do your homework as well. Do look at all the partner websites, make sure what's going on. It's a very big DTP, so there's a lot of activity. So do try and focus on the areas that you're interested in and really try to see where those match with your interests in the DTP. So that also helps. It's kind of following on from what Trevor has said about, calling out potential supervisors, but it's also a good idea to kind of think more widely about what sort of potential kind of techniques you'll need to be using and how you can exploit them for the interests that you personally have. I don't know, guys, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I think just look quite broadly across all the people involved and look for sort of connections in several different places and teams that you could be able to bridge between to do a project that really suits you.
That's great. Thank you. Fran.
Yeah, whatever it's been said before me, of course. Sometimes I'm going to focus on the Open University. Sometimes the research pages of the Open University are a bit labyrinthic. So Thursday side, you can contact me directly, and I can speak for Neil, hopefully. On the next side, you can contact him. Any questions? And there were a lot of questions also more broadly around what is in remit and what is not within the remit. So as others have said before, read carefully the guidelines, but still, if something is not...
I think you're cutting out, Fran, but we did get the main gist of what you were saying. But you just cut out there. So thank you. So Gail, I've left you the short straw. Anything to...
No, I don't think so. But what I really wanted to emphasize is that we recognize that everybody is on their own journey into doing a PhD. And we look at each student individually and their context. We know that some students have had more opportunities to get research experience than others. Some might be coming back into postgraduate study after a period in employment. And we welcome, all of those students. What we're looking for in your application is your potential to succeed in graduate study. And we've thought quite carefully about our application processes to try and give you the best opportunity that you can to do that. There are also opportunities to provide contextual information about your application that you would like us to know. And if you do provide that contextual information, rest assured that we read it very carefully and think about how that might affect how we assess the application.
Yes, and if I was to just follow up on that, I'd say, don't be shy about telling us, if there's something that might help us that might enhance your application. And as Esther said, do read the guidelines and also to add, if you do get shortlisted, we will be running a briefing session then ahead of the interviews. We really want to try and help you as a candidate, to try and level the playing field really and give everybody the best shot. And especially those who are coming from outside one of the hosting institutions. So we work really hard at this. And if you do have any questions, do feel free to reach out to us. Okay, so we've gone quite quickly through the panelists' thoughts there, and that was deliberate on my part because I really wanted to leave a lot of time for questions and answers. So is the Q&A open? Let me have a quick look. I haven't got any open questions at the moment. There were some questions I know on the previous in the first session, and there was one in particular, Gail, about what if someone's already applied and use their free applications, are they allowed to amend their application, I guess, or put in a new application to ELESLA without paying another application fee?
This is something that basically that probably more of a admissions question, but where graduate admissions is aware that this program launched quite late in the cycle, and therefore people might not have been aware of it at the time they put in their initial application. So they will consider requests to put in an additional application to this program if you've already submitted applications. But I would basically be encouraging you, obviously it sounds like you are interested in multiple programs, so make sure you are thinking about which is the program that would be the right program for you, this sort of say, in terms of, you know, whatever you choose to apply to, and that your application is tailored to the program that you are applying to.
Okay, Esther, I see you've flagged that you're going to answer a question live.
Yeah, very happy to do that. I saw that question earlier, so we better answer it. The question is whether you can do 2 rotations with 2 different supervisors and then join a different lab altogether for your DPhil PhD project. So while in principle that is a possibility, we would really encourage you to use the rotations really to gain some experience in a particular area, on a particular project, and with a particular supervisor. So I often call it sort of a test drive of the project and the research environment and the supervisor. So, and I would say that most, if not all of our students do go on and do their substantial project with at least one of the supervisors they did a rotation with. And often they say, I really loved both of my rotations, and then they will combine both rotations into their PhD project.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else want to take one? Whilst you're deciding, I will answer an easy one. Is there a recruitment limit for each theme? We do have in mind a sort of target number of students in different areas. I'm not sure it's a hard limit, but we do want a balance across the program. So we do have some idea of the number of students we want, you know, across the different partners too, of course, and the different parts of the program.
I think I pick up on a question that we keep getting about, you know, do you need to reach out to potential supervisors, and do you need to reflect that in your application? So in practice, because of the way we work, where you actually get offered, you know, the full sort of panoply of projects when you arrive, and you have lots of opportunities to work with different supervisors, is you certainly don't need to do that. But obviously you do need to be joining the program confident that, you know, you're open to a range of different options that might be available. If you have, you know, already got some ideas of what you might want to do, you might want to, you know, look into that. Are there relevant supervisors? You might want to reach out to some of those supervisors to say, you know, are you going to be admitting students in 2025? What's your research interest right now? But what we're not looking for is people who've already had an in-depth conversation with a supervisor that's led to a research proposal for a very specific project with that supervisor. We're looking for people who are open to engaging fully with the process, trying different projects, and benefiting from the training that we have an offer. Not a problem if you've got quite fixed ideas about what you might want to do. Just be aware those ideas may change once you have the experience of doing that research and working with that supervisor. And that's one of the big benefits of this program, is that you can actually try something else, and then that might actually change your mind and open your eyes to perhaps something you hadn't already thought about. So often we find people who have come in with quite a fixed idea about what they might want to do. They go through the induction, and then they find, you know, oh gosh, I didn't even know that was a possibility. I'd never heard of that technique. I did, you know, so coming to it with an open mind is generally what we encourage, but at least have some idea of what you want to do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be embarking on a PhD.
Yes, and there was a question about common pitfalls that applicants fall into with the statement of purpose, and I was going to answer that by repeating what Esther said. Not reading the guidelines is, I think, one of the most common ones. Attaching a very lengthy research proposal also will not impress us, because you are not meant to be doing that. So just please read the guidelines and stick to answering the questions on the application. Right. Anyone else wish to take a question? If you're keen to take a question on the panel, please do click on Answer Live, and then I will know that you're going to take it. There was one about someone returning from industry, which was quite interesting, and I wondered from GK Doe, and I wondered if we might take that one. Does someone want to have a go at this? Having worked in industry for 6 years, my technical skills are weaker coming directly from an institute. Will the initial training be enough to get up to speed, I guess, or do you need to do summer schools first? So we're quite keen on encouraging applications from people in industry. I wonder, Gail, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the training we offer is, you know, we're tailoring it for people who are discipline hopping and starting from all sorts of different levels. So in practice, that is something that sort of say that many people coming from industry or employment, you know, should still find a route. This is something we're actually looking at with this program, is how do we better support people making that transition and working with our industry partners to do that. I think there's another question that says, again, if you've been out of academia for a while, the application form asks for 3 academic references, you know, and you might no longer be in contact with people because that was some time ago. In those cases, you can provide professional references. They should never be family and friends. They should always be people who know you in a kind of a research or work appropriate context. But you would perhaps encourage your referees, if you're contacting them, to, you know, emphasize those skills that might be particularly relevant to doing doctoral study, whether it's sort of, you know, critical thinking or independence, time management. Think about the skills that are important in doing a PhD when they write their references. Is sort of, it's, although you know there are sort of lots of different skills that are attributes of really excellent students.
Okay. Does someone want to take another question? I see there's no takers. I see Gail earmarked another one, I think. Oh, Esther.
No, I just had one. So just to there was another one about this statement and whether that should be an essay or whether you should address the specific sub sections that we provide. Please address those specifically. So again, this is following the guidelines. We're not looking for an essay. We're looking for addressing you these different areas, and that's best done with giving the title and then give your section that has to fit within the word limit for that specific section. For example, about your previous research experience, one about your motivation, and one about why you want to join the program. So please follow that format. That is what we're looking for.
Okay, Farina.
Yes, I wanted to talk to the question about saying I have identified a topic I would like to work on and a supervisor. Should I mention that in the statement of purpose?
No.
Sorry, I've got background noise. Obviously, you know, we're very keen on for students to look at what they would be interested in and having a look. And this actually links to some of the other questions. In the slide, there is links to the different departments that are involved in the award, so you can have a look there. I would though say not to be too inflexible, because it might not be possible that you would be doing this specific project with this specific supervisor. And also, this is a very specific, very special PhD award. You're not applying for a specific project. You're applying to be part of this doctoral training program. So I hope this helps, and happy to.
Yeah, thank you, Farina. I thought I'd take a question about how much value is given to an interdisciplinary background, and I'm told I have a unique set of experiences, but will I be disadvantaged against candidates already have backgrounds specific to what they want to research in? I think the answer is no, you won't be disadvantaged. My view is, and I think it's the view of others here, is, you know, ultimately, are you bringing relevant skills into the program? And in fact, we have a transformative technologies theme, partly to recognize there will be people coming in, for example, from a more mathematical background who may not know much about the life or environmental sciences, but they absolutely have a place in this program. So I think if you have the right the right curiosity and interest, and you are bringing in relevant skills, then certainly that will be valued, and you will have a good chance of getting into the program.
I could take a question. There's a question about on the application form. I think this must be the CV part of the application form. We talked about professional qualifications and training courses. And so the way to think about this is your CV that you're putting forward applying to the program. So you want to illustrate, relevant experience that sort of shows, what sort of training you've had, any qualifications that you've gained, and they may or may not end up being directly relevant to the research project that you take, but here we are emphasizing things that perhaps are more sort of relevant to academic and employment related skills. So for example, you might have received, a certificate for sort of experience in training people in ice skating or something, and that might be something that may or may not, we probably wouldn't be paying much attention to that. But at the same time, it might be something that displays your leadership abilities and your team skill. So you've got to think, what does it say about me? I'm including information that is relevant. It says something about my leadership skills, my team skills, my specific sort of expertise that I've gained through studying for professional qualifications. So think carefully about what you include, because it's there to sort of to tell us something useful about you. So if you want to list that sort of say other type of qualification, you might want to emphasize more, which has given me sort of these team and leadership skills, rather than just sort of popping it in there.
Yeah, I thought I might take two questions together that are related. One on climate resilience. Is it possible to study this from a policy, governance and social science perspective while linking to AI, or do you prefer candidates with a hard science or engineering background? And another about what if you have less of a strong STEM background? So the way I would answer this in two ways. I mean, this is a science program, so and I think that's important to appreciate. And also it is necessary that the projects are at least the majority of the project, so over 50%, falls within firmly within NERC and BBSRC remit, and you can look up those science remits on the Research Council web pages. Of course, we are interested in policy governance aspects too, but I think I think is a useful rule of thumb. It's a hard science program, and if you're coming into the program, you should be prepared for the fact that you are entering a science program. I would add that we have admitted students who started out in the humanities and into the NERC DTP, a student who's absolutely flourished. So it certainly is possible to do that. Esther.
I'm just conscious of time, so we probably have to move on, because I know many people have questions related to the application process. So we're probably should move on to the next, to Victoria and others about the application process. But I just wanted to say we will take a look. We record all of the questions that are in the Q&A, and we will provide a frequently asked questions document that will hopefully help to answer many of the questions that we didn't get to in the session.
Indeed, thank you, Esther. Yes. And indeed, we have gone over into the next session, so perhaps we will wrap it up there. So thank you again to all the panelists for participating and for your answers. And if you do have further questions, you can also reach out to us after this process. Okay, so what do we do with the next session, given what's happening with Zoom rooms?
Well, mine's predominantly a presentation. So I think it's probably best to stay here for now.
Stay here. Okay.
Let people ask their questions in the Q&A, and just try and keep things simple as possible.
I think we'll stay in here until we get to the next breakout room. So thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm Victoria Forth. I'm the Programme Manager of the NERC, or NERC Environmental Research DTP, and I'm now going to be managing this ILESLA Landscape Award. So I'm more an administrative lead than anything else. So I'm going to, this presentation here is really about the administrative process of applying. So if you'll give me a moment to share my screen. And can you see my presentation there?
Not yet.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
It's just loading, yeah.
That works.
There we go. We can see.
Great. All right. Let's look back to my. So really, this is slightly more involved than the current doctoral training partnerships that we run, in that we have got 3 different institutions you could possibly apply to. So the first thing to do is really to be sure that you're going to be applying to the correct place. As mentioned before, you'll apply to the place where you're going to be carrying out your project. So you'll need to have a think about which supervisors you might want to work with. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have contacted them or finalised anything, but it is worth, really considering areas that you're interested in, and then investigating who might be in those institutions, who work in those areas, and trying to get to do your research basically about what's available. Which institution are they at, and apply to those institutions. And you can apply to more than one of the 3 admitting partners. If you have, for example, different ideas about different projects that would have different lead supervisors, where you're thinking about having a project that's more collaborative, it might have co-supervisions across the institutions, but you really know that what your project area is going to be, then you would just apply to the institution of the lead supervisor, and then you can sort out your collaborations a little bit further down the line. There's a lot to think about when you're applying. So really do thoroughly read the course pages before you hit click on your application. They are, most of the information there will be on the course pages. So just do take your time to read through it carefully. And you can access those through the How to Apply page on the main iLESLA website. The application itself is harmonised as far as possible across the 3 institutions. So what you submit with your application should be broadly the same. There might be slight differences this year, but in the longer term, they will be very, very strongly harmonised. For simplicity, most of this is therefore going to be on the Oxford website. We have an application guide. You can see a tiny screenshot of it there, which gives more general information about how to apply and what to consider and what to include. But then there is more specific information on our website, which will also lead through to the different institutions' course pages. So in the Oxford Brookes and the Open Universities, they will have just one single page for the most part on this programme. On the Oxford website, it's quite a bit more involved. So you can click through to the course page from the iLESLA website, and what you will find is this the DPhil in Interdisciplinary Life and Environmental Science course page. I don't know if you can detect it there, but it has tabs, different tabs, which give different information about the different aspects of applying. As far as the application form itself is concerned, once you've done all your research and you've looked at the How to Apply page, and you've perhaps done this evaluate yourself and how strong your application is likely to be, the interactive tool, and you've checked out the supporting documents and all the instructions that have already been mentioned. If you're applying to Oxford, you will need to create an account, because our application form is online. And so at the bottom of the How to Apply page, you will see this Start or Continue Your Application, and you can hit one of these buttons to create the account. If you're going to be applying via Open or Brooks, I believe there will be a Word application form, and you will submit that alongside your supporting documents. So that's a major difference. But as the first stop, you should probably visit the Oxford course page, where all the instructions are gathered together in one place. If applying to Oxford, this is what you will see. I'm just going to show you a few screenshots of the Oxford online application form, just for familiarity's sake, because it's always nice to kind of know what you're going to be presented with, and it is quite involved. We like tabs here at Oxford, so you'll create your account. Top tip, remember the email address that you used to create the account, because you will need that to log back in. But the form will save your progress. So you can do it a little bit at a time, fill in the bits you know, come back, upload documents when they're ready. You don't have to do it all in one go. Once you're in and you've selected the type of application, you'll see courses here. You can select your course. What you will see is the main application form, which has, again, a series of different tabs, and you can see at a glance which ones need more information that you need to complete there. And you'll be able to save and close or save and proceed as you complete each tab. So important things to remember. I think this has been mentioned once or twice, but you're not applying to a project when you apply to iLESLA. Do not please put a project title on your application form. The projects come later. You just instead indicate one of the 5 themes: biodiversity and sustainability, climate and earth, rules of life, animal and human health, transformative technologies. And then you should also very clearly state if you're interested in being involved in the Open2C initiative and working with an industrial partner. Because that will very much help assessors to put relevant applications together for assessment. There are a few questions I noticed in earlier sessions about the application fee. The application fee to Oxford has been reduced this year down to £20. It was £70 before, but you can still apply, certain people can still apply for application fee waivers. And so, there's a list of them here. I know that someone mentioned Unique Plus in an earlier session. And yes, people on graduate access programs can request a fee waiver, as can current students, applicants from low-income backgrounds, refugees, people on benefits. So there is a long list of people that are eligible. If you are not on that list and you would still like to apply, then you would need to contact the programme administrator, me, directly, and we will have a look at that on a case-by-case basis. On our application form, there is a field for extenuating circumstances, and these are things that you've experienced during your education that have caused you, that impacted significantly. For example, COVID was one of those things that has appeared a lot on the extenuating circumstances field of the application form. It's quite important because the application form is going to be seen by administrators, assessors, panels, really everybody who looks at your application. It's quite important not to include things that are too sensitive in that. Focus on the impact of the things that happened rather than describing in detail what actually happened. But we do, of course, offer the opportunity to submit a contextual statement, and that will only be seen by the course administrator and the directors. It's kept separate from the form, and it's treated with a lot more security and privacy. So if you do have additional details that you feel are important to share that will give added context to your story and help people to view your application in a more kind of holistic way, put that in the contextual statement. so that it's not just shared too widely. There are a number of supporting documents that need to be submitted with your application. And I've coloured these in 2 different colours because of the slightly different routes that applications might take. So for the CV, a template is provided. For Open University and for Oxford, the CV questions are part of the application form itself. I think for Brookes that will be submitted separately. It's not, they have their own application form, and so the supporting documents will be in addition to that form. All of the 3 institutions will ask for 3 referees. Mostly those should be academic, but of course, if you have been outside academia for a while, then professional references can be used. But we definitely would want some academic reference there. The statement of purpose has full instructions provided. That's on the Oxford course page and that how to apply tab. So as Esther mentioned, do follow those instructions very carefully. Don't provide a full essay, answer it exactly as described on the instructions. Official transcripts where available. And we do also need, for people whose first language is not English, we'll need a language qualification at the higher level. So these documents should all be integrated into the same document as the application form. If you're not applying via the Oxford online form, then we would like all of those things saved onto one single document. There are 2 additional supporting documents, which are a socioeconomic data questionnaire. It's optional to complete this, but it is very helpful for us so that we can monitor our own assessment process and be sure that we're really being as equitable as we possibly can be. And again, the contextual statement, if you want to give more information about difficulties or disadvantages you've experienced along your educational journey, and that will support your application. And these can be used, quite often they're used in before a candidate is, say, rejected. We would be very careful to check things like socioeconomic data or contextual statements to make sure that we weren't, dismissing somebody that we should keep in and give an additional opportunity to. So all of the institutions will be using the same CV questions. So please don't submit your own personal CV. And the reason for this is that we want everybody's CV to follow the similar format as possible, again, for reasons of equity. Oxford and Open, this is part of the application form, and for Brookes, a template will be provided. So please complete that template and attach it to your application. And we can provide a full list of the CV questions after this open day for people who want that help to prepare. Regardless of the institution that you apply to, we do want 3 references. Sorry to stress this, but it's very important that we get 3 references. Normally academic, but where relevant, professional references can be used. And on the Oxford application, you register these as part of the application form. And that's because we will contact referees directly. You should never attach references to your application. They won't count. We want to contact referees and so that referees can send their references to us directly rather than via you. If you're applying to Oxford, you'll be asked to name a college on your application. And but if you're applying to Brookes or Open, then you will automatically be affiliated with Linacre College, who have very kindly offered certain college facilities to students at those universities. Naming a college or choosing a college to put in your application can be somewhat confusing if you're not used to being in the Oxford system. There are 32 or something colleges, and they range hugely in how old they are, how big they are, their strengths, you know, the things that they are proud of. And also not all of them will accept for our programme. So you can see a full list of colleges that do accept for iLESLA on the course page on the Oxford website. There's a shorter list on the iLESLA website. The ones that we list on our website, the shorter list, are colleges that have they've indicated that they're really partnering with us by providing, for example, co-funding or use of college facilities or some kind of added value whereby they're supporting the programme. On our website, there's also a little video about choosing a college, which if you find the process confusing, and some people do, you can watch that, and it's some of our students talking about their advice. They talk about their colleges, and they offer some advice on things to think about when you're choosing a college. If you're unsure, you don't actually have to name a college. You can select open as an option, and then a college will be assigned. Or you could contact an administrator and talk a little bit about, you know, what you're hoping to get from your college, and maybe we can advise. We can certainly assign a college to you if it's all a bit overwhelming. So this is an approximate timeline. Obviously, with 3 institutions, some of the dates will vary, but certainly the first section is going to be the same for everybody. The application deadline is the 29th of January 2025. You have to apply by that deadline to be considered for funding. There's then a very intensive processing, assessment and shortlisting period, which takes place in the first 3 weeks of February. And then invites to interview will go out in the week commencing the 24th of February. Interviews will be taking place between the 27th of February and the 14th of March. We aim, where possible, to give 7 days notice of an interview. So you should get a week or so's notice. Those invites will be issued by email. So do please keep checking your email inbox on the email that you've given on the application form, because we do need you to confirm attendance at the interview. And if you don't confirm attendance, we may offer that slot to somebody else. So there's a 2-week interview period, and then the decisions will go out in the week of the 17th of March. So those are the initial decisions. There will also be a waiting list running, because we know that people are applying to multiple different programs. So if somebody gets an offer from us, they may already have accepted an offer somewhere else, or they may want to delay. So if you don't get a decision immediately, don't worry, be patient, because there's always a process of sending out offers, and then as places become available, either due to people going elsewhere or to extra funding becoming available, that's another reason why more places might become available, more offers will be issued. So this is kind of an ongoing process, and it can go on over the whole of the summer. All 3 institutions will have a deadline by which you need to provide documentation to meet your conditions. So offers are usually subject to conditions, and they'll usually be, you need to get at least a 2-1 or a first in your bachelor's degree. If you're an international student, you need your language qualification at the higher level, and those types of things. So the conditions deadline for Oxford is the 31st of August, and that's for both international and UK students. For Open and Brooks, it's earlier in the summer, and they have dates which differ for UK and international students. And so again, we can, in the slides that I share after this open day, I will give more information about what exactly those dates are. But I didn't want to make this presentation overly involved. So if you're fortunate enough to be invited for an interview, You should be aware that all interviews are held remotely. They'll be 30 minutes long. We'll ask you to give a 5-minute presentation at the start, which will kick off the interview. And all interviews are held in a very, very strict format with in between. So the panels will all have the same questions to ask and the same order. We try to make them as regular as possible so that everybody has the same interview experience and it's as fair as possible. So you will be in the invite to interview will be given some more information on the structure of the interview. And you will need to confirm your attendance as soon as you possibly can. We won't be sharing exact questions in advance, but there are certain things that you might like to consider thinking about. For example, why do you want to do a PhD would be a good thing to think about in advance. So all applicants will be contacted with an outcome. So if you don't hear straight away, please be patient because it's an incredibly busy time for administrators and we really are doing everything as quickly as we possibly can. But there are usually a lot of applications to get through and a lot of decisions to process. So, we will get to you. Please be patient. Having said that, we will do everything we can to get in touch with you between 7 to 14 days after your interview. We then, and that will be with an initial offer email. So there'll be kind of a holding email. Thank you very much for coming. We're delighted to be able to give you an initial offer, and we'll be in touch with the full details of your offer in due course. At Oxford, that's called an offer certificate, and it lays out all the details of your offer, including the conditions that you need to meet, and the time frame by which you need to get that documentation to us. We run the waiting list all across the summer because sometimes people have multiple applications in play and they're waiting to see the outcome of those different applications, so they don't know if they can accept their offer straight away. We always have more good people than we can give offers to straight away. So being on the waiting list should not be considered as being a failure. It's actually an amazing achievement. And we could, if we had more money, we would give you an offer, and we have to go through a process. So yes, that can roll on even through to July at Oxford. I think a bit earlier at the other institutions. Once all your conditions are met, then you get a confirmation of offer, and you can apply for your university card, and you can register as a student, and that concludes the process. As far as funding goes, we make both funded and unfunded offers. Unfunded offers will usually come with, will usually mean that some other source of funding has been found, so that they're not truly unfunded, but they might not be funded from the grant. They'll be funded from some other source. So please do check all the conditions in your offer letter before you accept an offer. Because there will be conditions related to topic or supervision or college, and so you need to make sure you're absolutely happy with those. And the January deadline for funding is associated not just with funding from iLESLA, but also other funding sources like university scholarships. That process takes a little while to work out. So you may get an offer that doesn't confirm straight away the source of your funding, because those university scholarships are decided between about March and May. And I think that's everything I want to talk about. Are there any questions? Just going to stop sharing. So hopefully you can see me again.
Yes, I think there's quite a lot of questions in the chat. I'm sorry. So as before, we can cycle between ourselves and answer some of the questions in the chat. So that's it.
it seemed like a few people applying to Oxford were having issues with the system not allowing them because they'd already submitted 3 applications. Victoria, you said that it would be Oxford would waive the fee and still allow it because it was late, but how do they physically do that in the system if it won't allow them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You need to contact graduate admissions and let them know that this is what's happening, and they will unlock that form for you in that case and allow you to apply to iLESLA. And their email address, I can release that afterwards, but it's actually graduate.admin@admin.ox.ac.uk, and I can put that in the chat for people.
Okay, so I see a question. I'll field a college specific question while you're sorting that out. So it's a question about whether
I've put that in the chat now. Yeah.
There's a question about whether the college you choose can advantage or disadvantage, and the answer is no. It doesn't make any. What you will find is you might be more or less likely to get the college that you choose, because some colleges are more popular than others. But in practice, you will end up with a college if you are admitted to Oxford, and most students are really happy with the college that they get admitted to. It does not influence your application. Where it might come in is that some of the scholarships that Oxford offers are actually awarded by specific colleges. So if we put your application forward for a scholarship and New College says, oh, I really like that applicant, I would like to offer them a scholarship, then you may then end up at New College because you have a New College scholarship.
There's a question here about, can my supervisor be from a department of Oxford University which is not listed under the iLESLA departments and institutes? So I think there's going to be quite a strict list of supervisors. Gail, is that correct?
Yeah, so basically, so the answer is they definitely can. But the second part of that answer is they also have to register with us as a supervisor, and they have to submit a project within that window I mentioned for submitting projects. So if you can, you've identified a supervisor you think fits with us, but you've got, you're not sure whether they are on our mailing list or in our sort of database, then you can obviously have, contact that supervisor and say, are you aware of this program? Would you accept students for this program? And if so, they can reach out to us and kind of become part of our mailing list. So we're largely guided by remit more than anything else, and the departments we list are the ones in which students most commonly do projects with us. If we listed all the departments, we'd be listing perhaps a lot of departments where very few or no students do projects with us. So it's indicative of where the majority of our students go.
There's a question around references and what if people applying have had career gaps, study gaps. If I just kind of answer from an OU's perspective and you let me know if it's different elsewhere, but that's okay. Yeah, obviously we know people's lives, kind of career gaps happen or study gaps happen. So we prefer academic references. So we still prefer an older academic reference over a newer kind of personal reference. So yeah, that's fine. I don't know, maybe if it's a really long time ago, we might come back to you and ask whether we can find somebody else more appropriate. But anybody else got anything to add from Oxford's point of view?
Yeah, and I would also say that in some cases, there may be a reason for that gap that you want to share with us, or you can encourage a referee to kind of explain to us. And that's what the contextual statement is for. You can say, there was a reason why I had that gap. For the same thing, if you've got like sort of say a year of your academic study where your grades slipped because of things that were not related to your academic potential, you can tell us that, and so that we know that when we look at your application. That's sort of it's.
The Open University's approach would be the same as Brooks's.
Thanks. A question came up a couple of times. I'll just say it in case there's people watching that are thinking the same thing. So if you have a look at if you're wondering about English tests, whether you need it if you've been taught in English, so a degree level qualification, if you have a look at the link I've put to the government website about what's called ECTIS, so it's kind of like an easier way to prove your English abilities. So have a look at the government link I've sent for all the information about who needs each test and what we recommend.
And then there's a question. There's some questions about the personal statement and the statement of purpose. And we will keep going back to what we keep saying. Follow the guidelines exactly. Please include the subheadings in the personal statement. As with any document, anything that you do to make it more structured, more readable, exactly follow the guidance that you've been given. That's going to support your application, sort of say. And one question that hasn't come up so much is whether or not you can use ChatGPT to write your application. Please do not. Please write it in your own words, from your own experiences. Use a spell checker or something for proofreading checking, but don't get an AI to write your application. And if you do so at Oxford, that might disqualify your application.
Could I just say, for anyone applying to the Open University, our systems aren't quite as good as Oxford, so our application system is still in Word documents, I'm afraid. So if you have a look on our website, I think the link's on the Oxford website now, but there's Word documents that you'd need to download and complete. So you'd be putting in the same information in our Word documents that you'll be putting into the Oxford site. And just going back to the IELTS or the English qualifications, there's a couple of people that asked about whether if they hadn't got the qualification certificate at the point in which they apply. So I say still apply, you can send that a little later. I know that not everyone might not have either passed or got the qualification certificate available. So if you have it, please send it to us. But if it's not quite ready yet, it's fine. You can send it a bit later. But we do recommend do that as soon as possible so it doesn't delay your application.
Yeah, I think that matches with Oxford as well. We do want to see it if you've already got it, but if you hadn't, then it would be a condition of your offer that you did meet that requirement.
That would be the same for Brooks as well. There's a question about the distribution of successful applicants between the universities, and Brooks would have 2 places available a year on this programme.
OU has the same, I think, around 2.
Yeah, Brooks and Open have a guaranteed minimum of 2 applications. In practice, when we look at the field, we will be sort of looking at the applications as a whole. So some partners are part of the partnership, and we have a commitment to have a minimum number of students working with those partners as part of our relationship with them. But there's not necessarily a maximum. It's more of a sort of say a minimum one, sort of in terms of that. So we've worked with Oxford Brooks for a long time, and the number has changed year on year for reasons connected to the applications we've received, the sources of funding we have. So it's not a fixed thing, but there will always be students going to all of the universities.
Victoria, if on the Oxford application system, if students need to add documents later, does it let them on the online system? So for example, the IELTS.
Yes, yeah, it does. Up until the point where they submit, but obviously if they submit it without the necessary, if it's a language certificate, then they can submit that direct to graduate admissions, and they can then add it into the form.
Somebody's asked about the annual stipend. So at the moment, the UKRI minimum stipend is 19,237, if I'm right. It will increase slightly next year. We won't find out that rate until next year. And then students on this course will get an extra £2,000. So it's like an enhanced stipend. So that will be for the full 4 years. And UKRI increase the minimum stipend every year. So you'll get the minimum stipend plus the 2K. And then I believe any kind of industrial collaboration projects, am I right in saying that they might get an additional top up. Is that right?
Yes, I think they get an extra £1,000 a year for case and industrial projects.
I'm conscious of time, so I wanted to check, Victoria, do the students who are presenting next have the link for this meeting?
They've all received the same timetable. I sent it out yesterday with the links.
I know, but we've changed. We're now not in the Zoom link. We're now in this link instead.
Okay, right. So I might need to contact them about that then.
Answer a couple more questions while we resolve that. So if Victoria can focus on that, we'll focus on answering a couple more questions.
Gail, do you want me to join the other link and tell them to come here?
You may find you can't get into it. You could give it a go because it's on the same Zoom account. I think you probably will find that no one can get into it. It's so.
Duck out into my emails and excuse me for a moment.
There was a question about giving the offers in late summer. Will there be an extension for the visa process? So I don't know about Oxford, but from the OU's point of view, this is why we have our kind of deadlines for admissions really early to allow time for ATAS clearance if required. Perhaps maybe not on too many projects in this, and also visa. But I guess, Gail, will this be? Is there's time for students applying to
There's
Oxford?
usually time. We do,
Yeah.
most of the offers are indeed made in March, and we do everything we can to expedite things for the kind of the visa process to get people their visa sorted if they need to get a visa sorted. And as I said, the vast majority of decisions will be made in March and April. So it's more unusual for us to be making a later decision at Neil.
Yeah, just well, we're waiting to hand over. I noticed there was a question earlier about residency requirements, and I'm conscious that we haven't really said anything about people studying part-time, or very little, because certainly for OU postgrads, the two standard routes are either you're full-time and you're here, or you're part-time, and most of our part-time students are at distance anyway, elsewhere in the UK. So I don't quite know exactly how that's going to work. Yeah.
I think the main answer is that ultimately we work out the best solution for each individual student, and some students will indeed be working, at various institutions that might require them to be not working in Oxford, or an exemption to be made from any residency requirements. So it sort of shouldn't be a barrier to people applying. I think there was a query earlier about people wanting to kind of commute from a very longish distance away, and just obviously to advise people that obviously that can be expensive and challenging. So again, we would discuss with you in any sort of those sort of circumstances what is realistic and feasible, because we want to make sure that people get the best possible experience.
But it may be in that case that if you think about what you really want to do, you might be best off thinking of studying part-time potentially, although
it's
good to be full-time.
And just to be clear, I mean, on the NERT DTP, we certainly have a student who lives further than 25 miles away remotely, for very good reasons. So exemptions can be made where there is
absolutely, if there are good reasons. And then they say the regulations around part-time students at Oxford are indeed different from the regulations for full-time students in terms of residency requirements, in terms of that.
Becky, you mentioned the government link website. Did you put that in the chat? I didn't.
I think somebody did.
Okay.
So I see a question about the 5-minute presentation. So typically this is a brief overview of a research project that you have previously done, and remembering that you are doing that for people who are scientists but who are not specialists in your project. So it's testing your ability to basically succinctly explain your, and distill out the project you did, the key aims, perhaps introduce, one method, one key experiment. So it's designed to be very succinct, and it's designed to basically open up a conversation in the interview with the assessors about that project, because in some ways we learn more about you by talking to you about your project than we do from you giving us a previously prepared presentation. So it's really just a sort of an opening and say, do bear in mind that the people on the panel say will not be specialists. What they're looking for is you to explain and sort of said, this is why this project, why it's important, what I did, what my main finding was, if you're at the point where you've got a main finding. That's sort of that. So it's supposed to be really succinct. It's a bit of a sort of a communication skill challenge.